Christian McCaffrey recently said that being traded to the San Francisco 49ers was the best thing that ever happened to him. And why wouldn't it be? The 49ers were stacked with a Madden fantasy draft roster full of skill players before he got there, with one of the best offensive minds in the league in Kyle Shanahan calling the shots to make the most of them all. The team he left in the Carolina Panthers, meanwhile, fired their head coach Matt Rule midway through last season and are on their way to tearing the whole thing down. McCaffrey truly is the cool guy in a blockbuster action movie, walking away from the explosion behind him and into contention. But there's more to this story than McCaffrey just passively landing in a better situation. He's being utilized differently in San Francisco than he was in Carolina. Now, he can be maximized as a member of the offense than the superstar skill player that the team is built around. During the first 6 weeks of 2022, McCaffrey accounted for 52.2% of total touches in the offense and 39.8% of total yards from scrimmage in Carolina. And despite his involvement, the operation more resembled a car spinning out into oncoming traffic than a football team as they crashed and burned for a 1-5 record. Compare this to his workload in San Francisco from Week 7 and beyond, where he accounted for just 37.3% of total touches and 28% of total yards. And he wasn't just blending into the rest of the talent either. The CMC 49ers gained nearly 40 more yards, scored 9 more points per game, and won their final 10 games of the regular season. McCaffrey himself ended the year as the second best graded running back according to Pro Football Focus, slotted into a 3-man race with Josh Jacobs and Nick Chubb. In essence, McCaffrey achieved more by doing less in San Francisco, including reaching his first ever NFC Championship game. So, how did Shanahan extract the best from him? There are 2 key factors here. First, they incorporated more zone blocking run schemes rather than gap schemes, and secondly, they utilized McCaffrey more in the slot and as a wide receiver, expanding his versatility beyond previous seasons. So, on that first point, McCaffrey and zone versus gap schemes. Before diving into statistics or examples, let's briefly explain the differences between these 2 blocking strategies for rush plays in the NFL. In a gap blocking scheme, the offense aims to create a specific gap or hole in the trenches for the running back to exploit. Each lineman has a designated assignment to achieve this, often resulting in linemen stepping in different directions at the snap to execute their blocks. On the other hand, in zone blocking schemes, linemen are responsible for blocking within their respective zones instead of focusing on opening up a specific area. Unlike gap runs, linemen who are zone blocking step in unison at the snap, moving towards the direction of the play and into their zones. The running back reads the defense's first and second levels to make a well-timed cut through the emerging hole based on their reactions. At the start of 2022, in Carolina, we saw McCaffrey take the largest percentage of gap-blocked runs in his career and produce the lowest yards per average attempt since his rookie year, notwithstanding his 3-game season in 2020. But the script flipped in San Francisco, as his percentage of zone-blocked runs went from 41% in his first 6 games of the year to 68% in San Francisco, as his yards per attempt picked back up to just above his 2019 All-Pro numbers. Now, to be fair, we're talking about tenths of a yard here, but when we review the film, I think it becomes clear that you want McCaffrey in more of these zone situations. He can use more of his vision and quick cutback/gallop moves to get through tight spaces in the defense, as opposed to having to be patient and wait for holes to open up for him. Check out this outside zone toss play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where McCaffrey opens it up for 10+ yards on the first down. To start, we see Kyle Juszczyk motion from the offensive line back to a more traditional fullback spot. Check out how the defense reacts to this. Not only was the offense already starting with a numbers advantage, with 5 blockers for $4 on the play side, but now the edge rusher has taken himself completely out of the play. Watch how the offense all takes a step to the left with McCaffrey and into their different zones. The linemen all start in unison to the left side and into these zones. They'll work to double team the defenders in their path and then pass them off to each other so one can then work in the second level. Now check out how McCaffrey reads this. He's aiming for the C gap, but he'll keep both linebackers in his sights. Once he sees them take the long way around, with their helmets popping out the other side of his blockers, he'll make his cut inside. That second level block gives him just enough time to gallop through the hole and into space. Of course, this doesn't mean that CMC can't make things happen off well-timed gap-schemed plays like he does here earlier in the same game. Again, we get some Juszczyk motion, this time of the jet sweep variety. Side note, I really loved how they used what's typically used for a pass or play-action decoy to give their fullback a running start at the block. Super clever. The left tackle and guard on this play are responsible for blocking more towards the left side, the center to seal off the tackle, and then the real star of this play is George Kittle, who comes pulling around from the tight end position to be the lead blocker here. McCaffrey is following Kittle pretty much no matter what. While this play, like the last one, is also set up to attack the C-gap, McCaffrey isn't really utilizing his vision. That's obviously no problem on this one though, since Kittle lays a big hit on the backer and McCaffrey skips his way through. But the difference between these gap runs and these zone runs is that the zone runs just seem more reliable for 4, 5, 6 yards every time. I'd rather get McCaffrey moving laterally and then give him the opportunity to make something happen in conjunction with his blockers than I'd want to rely so heavily on my blockers to open up space for him. Take for example this zone run against Miami where he's able to grab 5 to 6 yards off the toss. Again, what makes this play is how both McCaffrey and his blockers work in tandem. He looks pot committed to test the outside, so the linebacker takes a roundabout path. Meanwhile, the left guard passes the double team off to the center and makes another block in the second level to open up more space for McCaffrey to work with. This is in contrast to those gap scheme runs where not getting enough push at the outset or a clumsy guard pull like this one can blow the whole thing up and not give McCaffrey a chance. Plus, it definitely doesn't hurt that Shanahan is known for his zone blocking scheme, so if anyone's going to get the most out of it, it's probably going to be him. The other part of McCaffrey's success in San Francisco came from his usage in the slot and as a wide receiver. While in Carolina, McCaffrey saw 10.3% of his snaps at the slot and only 2.2% out wide. On the 49ers, these numbers ballooned to 14.9% in the slot and 10% out wide. And beyond just where they lined him up, the 49ers also gave McCaffrey much more opportunities beyond the line of scrimmage than he saw in Carolina. His average depth of target was by far the highest of his career. After having 0 targets go beyond 20 yards as a Panther, he saw 6.2% of his targets come downfield in San Francisco. And why is this important? Although McCaffrey's official position is running back, where he's really special is in his versatility as a wide receiver. Let's go back to that PFF grade referenced earlier. When we look at how the grade breaks out on runs versus passes, we see he graded out well as a runner, but he was by far and away the best receiver at his position. Let's go back to that Miami game where he shows how deadly he can be on passes downfield and in shorter depth. On this first one, San Francisco motions McCaffrey out wide, which forces Miami to show their hand as linebacker Duke Riley follows him out onto an island. Miami is playing a cover 1 concept, with one safety protecting the deep middle and a linebacker dropping into the intermediate part of the field while everyone else is in man. McCaffrey gives Riley exactly the move he's expecting, one that looks like he's running an out and then burns him down the sideline for a big gain. And on this one, also against Riley, McCaffrey uses his quickness on the whip route to make space for the catch and keep the chains moving on 3rd and short. Looking at McCaffrey on paper, it can be easy to think of him as a runner first just because of his position, but to really have him shine in an offense, he's got to have opportunities in space to shake people. And one of the best ways to do this is to have him run routes that cut through and put pressure on the defense. Christian McCaffrey's career has received an extremely bright glow up since he landed in San Francisco. Although he did walk back some of his initial statement to express gratitude to the Panthers organization, I really don't think it was necessary. Shanahan, after all, is maximizing his abilities and putting him in more positions to do what he's special at. All the while, he's doing it on less touches, which should help him preserve his body and longevity at a position that is infamous for a short shelf life, especially after 2 seasons in a row that were cut short by injuries. No doubt, there's still unfinished business for McCaffrey and the 49ers, who have every right to be considered contenders again in 2023. But as long as they continue building on the success they found together last season, there's no reason to think their offense won't be even scarier this season. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to give it a like if you did enjoy it, and please consider subscribing to Football Doesn't Matter so you can catch the next video. Thanks. Bye.